first read this book in March 2019. I say read this book, the audiobook version, and I've applied it to something different nearly every year since. And I've applied it to multiple books in order to get the actions from those books to stick, the actions and the habits. And that's why I had to include in like my early series of these books, Atomic Habits by James Clear. In 2018, I read it in 2019, March 2019, and I've applied it to so many things. It's just surreal, and I didn't realise how much of a thread it was until I started prepping for this series, and still I started looking through my library and looking at the things that I'd done, and this is not just in business, this is in health, and this is in like how I wake up and how I manage my calendar and just productivity and all of that. So I had to talk about this book. I know that a million people talk about it. So here's the thing for me. I read it fairly quickly, and I have also got the audiobook as well. I gave the book away when I was doing a declutter, and I think some of that is obviously I've got the audiobook anyway, and I do dip in and out. But also the principles have really stayed with me, and it's probably because I've like applied them so many times. So I'm not going to go into the principles in detail because I'm guessing that you've already heard them. I just want to sort of talk about, I guess, how I've applied them to different things that I've done in my life, specifically different books. And I'm not going to go into all of the books, but it'll come out in this series as I talk about different books and the things that I've taken from the books. You'd be amazed how many of them I've sort of said, oh yeah, because of Atomic Habits, that's how I got that thing to stick from that book. So this is like, for me, Atomic Habits, this is literally 7 years of kind of like reading, going back to it, dipping back in, going back to some of the principles about making things easy, removing barriers, habit stacking, all of that, right? So the one example that I wanted to start with is walking, is my daily walking. My daily walk has become such a constant in my life. I can't even tell you. I walk pretty much every day. The only time I don't walk is either if I'm sick and I have to be really sick, or I can feel that like a really bad infection is coming. I can feel that my body's really fighting infection, and I'm like, no, do you know what? I'm just going to literally like spend the whole day in bed, which doesn't happen very often. But when I feel that, then I don't walk. And then very occasionally, if I've got like a niggle in my knee, for example, I've got bad knees, right? If you listen to me long enough, you're going to know about this stuff. And then if I can sort of sense that there is maybe some instability or some swelling or something, and I just know that it would be silly to push it, I don't walk. That came as a result of Atomic Habits, in terms of developing that into a daily habit. And then that has become the habit that I have then habit stacked certainly some of my other fitness things too as well. In terms of the walking, where that came from. So I used to run. Many years ago, I used to run. If you knew me, I used to run. I started running when my daughter was born. So we're talking like nearly 30 years ago that I started running. Yes, I am old enough, right? So I started running nearly 30 years ago, and I started doing yoga on and off. And it was something that I would always go back to. The running kind of stuck mainly. And then many years ago, I decided I was going to run a marathon with some friends. At a christening, once we'd had a little bit too much champagne to drink, and so we were like, let's run a marathon, and not any marathon, let's run New York Marathon. So with some friends, I did all of the training. I was doing quite a lot of running by that point anyway. I was probably already at like half marathon level, and so we ran a marathon and all of that. So I was doing a lot of running, but at the same time, I was getting more and more knee injuries. I'd actually first injured my knee playing netball, and so I was getting a lot of knee injuries and was getting a lot more wear and tear. I'd already by then had a few like knee surgeries and things like that. So there's a whole mess around the running. But basically, where am I going? I'm going down so many rabbit holes. You need to stop me. You need to stop me and just like pull me back out of the rabbit hole. Anyway, suffice to say, when it came to, I hadn't been doing any running for a long time because my knee injuries had gotten so bad that I pretty much stopped. I can't even remember which year. I'm going to say it was probably around 2013. No, around 2015 is probably when I pretty much sort of stopped running, I would say, because my knee injuries were getting so bad. And this is like cartilage tears, bucket handle tears. If you know about meniscus and cartilage, right, give me some support in the comments, right, because it is not fun. It's very incredibly painful. And so there was definitely a few years when I hadn't run at all. And but I'd sort of on and off, do a little bit of walking. Anyway, obviously COVID came along. We all did a lot of walking, right? But I still hadn't really developed it as a habit. And it wasn't until I really went back to Atomic Habits, and I think I saw like a booktuber or a booktoker, I can't remember what they are, talking about Atomic Habits. So I dipped back into it, learned about the habit stacking, removing the obstacles, started like putting my trainers and my walking gear out every morning. So it was almost like in the way, right? So I couldn't avoid it. That's how I then was able to develop a daily walking habit. And now I walk a similar route, not as far as I would have run every day, because that would just take too long. I used to like, my daily run was like a 5 mile. It would take too long. But I do walk around 6K every morning. And so for me, that is about 8,000-ish steps. I'm quite short. So that's about 8,000 steps for me. So I do that pretty much every day. And that was as a result of listening to Atomic Habits, especially in terms of removing those blockers and making it really easy by doing things like putting my trainers out, getting my workout gear out. Some of it even meant really just thinking about the routines of like, how much workout stuff did I need? I remember actually when I first started walking really regularly, and you've got like things like, the bad weather and all of that. When I was running and I wasn't running every day, it would be quite easy to just like, if there was bad weather, be like, oh, I'll just miss a day. Because I used to run like 3 or 4 times a week. And even the fact that I say that, it was a habit, but it wasn't a daily habit. But I think for me, I learned that walking has to be a daily habit, right? To keep it going. They can't be like, it's like an alternative. It has to be daily. It has to be a daily habit. So it has absolutely become a daily habit. And the main thing from the Atomic Habits is like putting my stuff out in advance, and, just having everything sorted and organized, having like the right weather gear. So like having the right rain jackets and snow jackets for when it's snowing. And honestly, I go out in all weathers. I literally go out in all weathers. And this is as a result of Atomic Habits. The other thing in terms of the habit stacking now, as I've changed my other fitness around it, as I've gotten slightly older, as I've moved into like perimenopause and all of those lovely things, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in terms of books. I wanted to, and obviously because I'm doing a lot of walking, I have to do more stretching, but I also wanted to do more strength training in a different way to what I'd been doing before. I used to do a lot of like Les Mills body pump, Les Mills body combat and all of that, but I realised as I'm getting older, I need to be lifting heavier weights, so I needed to like change all of that up. So what I did in terms of my habit stacking now, so obviously this is something James Clear talks about. If you've got one habit that's well formed, you want to like add another one onto that habit. So I've added the other ones on. So basically now, so it's currently summer, we have very long mornings still. So I go out for my walk very, very early in the morning. Typically by 5 I'm already out. So by 5 o'clock I'm already out. Then when I come back, I do either stretching. On alternate days, I either do like yoga stretching to like stretch off the leg muscles, or I'm doing a strength training video, and that's like clockwork. It's now clockwork. The thing that I then do, and it's only this winter that I figured it out. When we then go into the winter months, I then have to flip it. So I have to do my fitness at home first, and then I go out and walk when it's a little bit lighter. So figuring those things out, figuring out what those barriers and what those excuses can be, removing them, the habit stacking, it absolutely works. And I'll be definitely touching on Atomic Habits more with other books, because for me, it's almost been like the companion. the companion to other books and other learning, because we can read all of the books in the world that we want to, but if we don't have a way of actually implementing the things that we think are good ideas, then nothing's going to happen. So for me, Atomic Habits has been one of the really good ways of being able to sort of like implement these ideas. And this is, you know, I've bought all kinds of things to try to get habits and things to say. I've had like planners where you like tick off habits and journals. It's never worked. But the principles of Atomic Habits have absolutely always worked. So my rapid review, rating out of 5. Well, it's 10 out of 5, right? I mean, I'm getting silly now, aren't I? 5 out of 5 on Amazon is absolutely what I would give it. And a lot of these books are going to be that, because these are my favourite books. As the series goes on, we're going to get into some that maybe haven't got a 5 out of 5 rating. My one-line verdict, what would I say about Atomic Habits? It's the book that gives you the how. It gives you the how. So a lot of books tell you the what and maybe the why. This is the book that gives you the how, is what I would say. Who should read it? Anybody that wants to change, anybody that wants to make significant change should read this book. And you should read it alongside other books, basically. Who shouldn't read it? Is there anybody that shouldn't read it? People that like routine. And I'm always laughing that as an accountant, a lot of accountants don't like change. So maybe accountants that don't like change don't need to read it because they just like sticking to routine. Audiobook, physical book, or both? I would say both. Audiobook, physical book. I'm now that I'm doing this series again, I'm feeling like I need to buy these physical books back again. Atomic Habits. If it's not in that bookshelf behind me when I finish this, I'm absolutely going to be going out and buying another one. So I really want to know, especially if you have read Atomic Habits, what's the one practice that he talks about in Atomic Habits that has really worked for you? Please put that in the comments, because I would love to know. And what was it that made it stick? You know, any habits that you tried, what was it that made it stick? Okay, that is my take. Let me know yours.